Blood stained the dusty floorboards of Doc Paulson's clinic as Finn Holcomb gritted his teeth, his weathered face contorted in agony while the physician extracted the bullet from his shoulder. The year was 1878, and the small town of Willow Creek, Colorado, had seen its fair share of gunfights, but never one quite like the showdown that had left 3 men dead and Finn barely clinging to consciousness. "It hurts too much," Finn growled through clenched teeth as Doc pressed a cloth soaked in whiskey against the wound. A soft voice from the doorway caught both men by surprise. "That's why I'm here." Finn's eyes, clouded with pain, found the silhouette of a woman he didn't recognize, tall and slender with auburn hair pulled back beneath a practical bonnet. She stepped into the lamplight, revealing delicate features and determined blue eyes that betrayed no fear at the sight of his bloodied form. "Miss Bella Zimmerman," Doc Paulson explained, "our new nurse from back east. Providence sent her just in time, I reckon." Bella moved with practiced efficiency, taking the cloth from the doctor's hand. "I've seen worse," she said calmly, though Finn noticed her fingers trembling slightly as she pressed against his wound. "The bullet didn't hit any arteries. You're fortunate, Mr. Holcomb." "Don't feel particularly fortunate right now, madam," Finn muttered, wincing as she cleaned the wound. He studied her face, searching for judgment or disgust, but finding only concentration and something else, compassion, perhaps. Doc Paulson bustled about, gathering supplies. "Miss Zimmerman arrived on yesterday's stage. Answered my advertisement for assistance. 2 years' experience at a hospital in Boston." "Boston?" Finn raised an eyebrow, his curiosity momentarily overriding his pain. "Long way from home, Miss Zimmerman." Something flickered in her eyes, a shadow of something unspoken. "Home is where one chooses to make it, Mr. Holcomb." As Bella worked alongside Doc Paulson to stitch his wound, Finn observed her quiet efficiency. Her hands were steady now, moving with purpose and skill. When she leaned close to secure a bandage, he caught the faint scent of lavender amid the clinic's medicinal smells. "You'll need to rest," she instructed after they'd finished. "No riding, no shooting, and certainly no more barroom brawls for at least 2 weeks." "Wasn't exactly a barroom brawl," Finn corrected, attempting to sit up. "Those men came looking for me specifically." "Hold still," Bella admonished, gently pushing him back down. "Whatever the circumstances, your body needs time to heal." Doc Paulson cleared his throat. "Finn here is our local rancher and sometimes lawman when Sheriff Davis needs a hand. Got more enemies than friends these days, standing up against the railroad men trying to force folks off their land." Finn grimaced, both from pain and the reminder of his troubles. "Don't paint me as some hero, Doc. I'm just protecting what's mine." Bella's expression remained impassive, but something in her gaze suggested she was reassessing him. "Noble or foolish, the wound doesn't distinguish between intentions, Mr. Holcomb. You'll still need proper care." "Call me Finn," he said, suddenly aware of how formal Mr. Holcomb sounded coming from her lips. "Very well, Finn," she replied, the slightest hint of a smile touching the corners of her mouth. "You can call me Bella." Doc Paulson intervened. "Miss Zimmerman, would you mind watching over our patient while I check on Mrs. Abernathy? Her time's nearly come for that baby." After the doctor departed, silence filled the small clinic. Finn studied Bella as she methodically cleaned instruments and arranged supplies. "So, what brings a Boston lady to a dusty frontier town like Willow Creek?" he finally asked. Bella kept her back to him, her shoulders stiffening slightly. "A desire for change, perhaps, or maybe I simply go where I'm needed. Plenty of folks needing care in Boston, I'd wager." She turned, fixing him with a direct gaze. "Are you always this curious about strangers who save your life, or am I special?" Despite his pain, Finn laughed a rough, unused sound. "Point taken, madam." "I thought we agreed on Bella," she reminded him, the hint of a smile returning. She approached his bedside with a cup of water. "Can you sit up enough to drink?" With her assistance, Finn managed to sip the cool water. Their fingers brushed as she took the cup, and he noticed how the lamplight cast golden highlights in her auburn hair. "Thank you," he said, suddenly feeling the exhaustion of the day weighing on him. "Rest now," she instructed, her voice softer than before. "I'll be here when you wake." As consciousness slipped away, Finn found himself wondering why a refined woman from Boston would bury herself in this unforgiving territory, and why her eyes held such guarded secrets. Morning sunlight streamed through the clinic's windows when Finn awoke, pain throbbing in his shoulder but his mind clearer than the night before. He found Bella asleep in a chair beside his bed, her head tilted at an uncomfortable angle, a book open in her lap. Not wanting to disturb her, he tried to shift position without making noise, but a floorboard creaked beneath the bed frame. Her eyes fluttered open immediately, alert and wary before recognition softened her features. "You're awake," she observed, straightening and smoothing her skirt. "How's the pain?" "Manageable," Finn lied, though the grimace that followed betrayed him. Bella raised an eyebrow. "Cowboys and their pride. Let me check your bandage." Her fingers were cool against his skin as she examined the wound. "No signs of infection." "You're healing well, though I suspect you're in more pain than you admit." "Had worse," he said, then caught himself. "But I appreciate your care." She mixed a powder into water and offered it to him. "For the pain. Don't worry, it won't make you sleep all day." "Doc Paulson says you're the type who makes a poor patient." Finn accepted the medicine with a rueful smile. "Doc knows me too well." After he drank it, Bella gathered her things. "I need to help Doc with his morning patients, then I'll bring you something to eat." "You don't need to wait on me," Finn protested. "It's not waiting on you, it's nursing," she corrected firmly. "There's a difference." As she turned to leave, Finn found himself asking, "That book you were reading, what is it?" Surprise flickered across her face before she answered. "Whitman. Leaves of Grass. Not what you expected from a nurse in a frontier town. Honestly, I wouldn't know what to expect. I'm not much of a reading man myself." "Perhaps you should try it sometime," she suggested. "There's power in words, Mr. Holcomb, sometimes more than in bullets." With that, she was gone, leaving Finn to wonder about the woman who read poetry and tended wounds with equal dedication. Over the next days, Finn's strength gradually returned. Though Doc Paulson insisted he remain at the clinic, Finn chafed at the confinement. Bella's presence became the one aspect of his recovery he didn't mind. Their conversations grew longer as his pain lessened, and he found himself sharing stories of his life, how he'd come west as a boy with his father, learned ranching from the ground up, and eventually built the Rocking H into one of the most prosperous spreads in the territory. In turn, Bella spoke of her training as a nurse during the war's aftermath, though she remained reticent about her personal life before Willow Creek. Each time Finn steered conversation toward her past, she deftly redirected him. "You're avoiding my questions," he observed one evening as she changed his bandage. "I'm focusing on my patient," she countered. "I've met stone walls less impenetrable than you, Bella Zimmerman." Her hands paused momentarily. "Perhaps some stories aren't meant to be shared with men you've known less than a week." "Fair enough," Finn conceded. "But I hope someday you'll trust me enough to tell me what brought you here, what you're running from." Her eyes snapped to his. "Who says I'm running from anything?" "Experience," he replied simply. "I recognize the look of someone who's left something behind, seen it in my own mirror often enough." Bella finished securing the fresh bandage before responding. "We all have chapters we'd rather keep closed, Finn. Respect mine and I'll respect yours." The following morning, Doc Paulson declared Finn well enough to return to his ranch, provided he promised to rest and avoid strenuous work. "My foreman's been handling things, but I should get back," Finn agreed, relief evident in his voice. "No offense to your hospitality, Doc." "Miss Zimmerman will ride out with you," the doctor announced, surprising both of them, "to ensure you're settled properly and to check your wound tomorrow." Bella opened her mouth as if to protest, then closed it again. "That won't be necessary," Finn said quickly. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Havers, can." "It's decided," Doc interrupted firmly. "I need someone with medical knowledge to ensure you don't undo all our good work. Besides, Miss Zimmerman could use the fresh air after being cooped up in this clinic." An hour later, Finn helped Bella onto the wagon seat before climbing up beside her, wincing slightly as the movement pulled at his healing wound. The journey to the rocking H would take nearly 2 hours over rough terrain, and he found himself oddly nervous at the prospect of this extended time alone with her. As they left town behind, the sprawling landscape opened before them, rolling hills giving way to pastureland, with distant mountains standing sentinel against the clear blue sky. "It's beautiful," Bella said softly, taking in the view. "Different from anything I knew back east." "Takes some getting used to," Finn acknowledged. "All this open space can make a person feel small, but there's freedom in it too." They fell into comfortable silence until Bella asked, "Those men who shot you, you said they came looking for you specifically. Why?" Finn's hands tightened on the reins. "Railroad wants to cut through my land. I've refused their offers. Some men don't take kindly to being refused. So they tried to kill you instead of negotiating. It's how business is often conducted out here," he said grimly. "But they picked the wrong rancher to intimidate." Bella studied his profile. "You could have died. We all die someday. That's a convenient philosophy for a man who carries a gun," she observed. Finn gave her a sideways glance. "You disapprove?" "I've spent too many hours patching up bullet holes not to question the wisdom of violence," she replied. "But I also understand that sometimes there are no good choices, only necessary ones." Her answer surprised him. Most women of his acquaintance either romanticized or condemned his occasional role as a gunman, but Bella seemed to grasp the complicated reality. "Your land must be worth a great deal to risk your life for it," she continued. "It's not about the money," Finn explained, his voice softening. "My father and I built that ranch from nothing. Every fence post, every head of cattle represents years of work. Some things can't be given a dollar value." Bella nodded. "I understand that more than you might think." Before he could ask what she meant, the wagon hit a deep rut, jostling them both. Bella's hand flew out to steady herself, landing on Finn's arm. He felt the warmth of her touch even through his shirt sleeve. "Sorry," she murmured, withdrawing her hand quickly. Finn cleared his throat. "We're nearly there. You can see the house just beyond that rise." As they crested the hill, the rocking H spread out before them, a sprawling ranch house with several outbuildings, corrals containing horses, and cattle grazing in the distance. It was modest compared to some of the territory's larger operations, but well-maintained and clearly prosperous. "You've built something remarkable here," Bella observed. Pride warmed Finn's voice. "It's home." Mrs. Havers, a gray-haired woman with a perpetual expression of concern, greeted them at the door. Her relief at seeing Finn quickly gave way to curiosity about Bella, whom she ushered inside with barely concealed interest. "The doctor sent Miss Zimmerman to ensure I don't tear my stitches," Finn explained as his housekeeper bustled about preparing a room for their guest. "Thank heavens, Mrs. Havers declared. Perhaps you'll actually listen to her, since my warnings about your recklessness fall on deaf ears." Finn rolled his eyes. Mrs. Havers has been mothering me for 15 years. Thinks I'm still the boy who arrived here at 16. Someone needs to look after you, the older woman retorted affectionately. Especially now that, she stopped abruptly, casting an apologetic glance at Finn. An uncomfortable silence fell, broken when Bella asked, "Might I see the wound now? The journey may have disturbed the bandage." In Finn's bedroom, Bella helped him remove his shirt to examine the injury. Her professional demeanor didn't waver, but Finn was acutely aware of her closeness, the scent of lavender that seemed to follow her everywhere. "It's healing well," she pronounced, applying fresh bandages. Another week of careful movement should a loud commotion outside interrupted her. Shouts and the thunder of approaching hoofbeats drew Finn to the window. "Trouble," he muttered, reaching for the gun belt hanging on his bedpost. Pain shot through his shoulder as he attempted to buckle it on. "What are you doing?" Bella demanded, stepping between him and the door. "You can't possibly think of fighting in your condition." "Those are railroad men," Finn explained grimly, recognizing the lead rider. "Victor Clayton and his hired guns, same men who tried to kill me in town." "All the more reason for you to stay inside," Bella insisted. "Let your ranch hands handle this." "This is my fight," Finn argued, trying to move past her. Bella stood her ground. "And what happens when your wound reopens and you bleed out on your own front porch? What happens to your ranch then?" Their eyes locked in silent battle until Mrs. Havers burst into the room. "Mr. Holcomb, there are men outside demanding to speak with you. Jesse and the boys are facing them down, but they're outnumbered." Finn's expression hardened. "Tell Jesse I'm coming." "No," Bella said firmly, surprising both of them with her vehemence. "Tell them Mr. Holcomb is recovering from his injuries and cannot be disturbed. Say the doctor is attending him and any disturbance could prove fatal." Mrs. Havers looked from Bella to Finn uncertainly. "Do as she says," Finn finally conceded, recognizing the wisdom in her strategy. "And tell Jesse to make it clear they're trespassing on private property." After the housekeeper departed, Finn moved to the window again, watching the confrontation unfold. His foreman, a stocky, reliable man who'd worked the rocking H for nearly a decade, stood with 4 ranch hands facing Clayton and his 7 men. "Clayton won't leave empty-handed," Finn muttered. "He doesn't believe I'm too injured to face him." Bella joined him at the window. "Then we'll have to convince him." Before Finn could ask what she meant, she was striding from the room. Moments later, he saw her emerge onto the porch, medical bag in hand, her posture radiating authority despite being the only woman among armed men. "Gentlemen," her voice carried clearly through the open window, "I am Miss Zimmerman, Mr. Holcomb's nurse. He is currently unable to receive visitors due to the severity of his condition." Clayton, a thin man with cold eyes, leaned forward in his saddle. "We ain't visitors, lady. We've got business with Holcomb." "Any business will have to wait," Bella replied calmly. "The bullet wound has caused considerable damage. Disturbing him now could result in hemorrhaging and death." "How convenient," Clayton sneered. "Tell Holcomb he can hide behind a woman's skirts for now, but the railroad's coming through his land one way or another. Next time we won't miss." "Is that a threat, Mr. Clayton?" Bella asked, her voice carrying a new edge. "Because threatening a man's life in front of witnesses seems unwise, even in this territory." Clayton's face darkened. "You're not from around here, are you? Let me explain how things work. The railroad needs this land. Holcomb's refusal is simply delaying the inevitable." "And let me explain something to you," Bella countered, taking a step forward. "I have spent the last 5 days keeping Mr. Holcomb alive after your men's cowardly attack. If he dies because you've agitated his condition, I will personally ensure that every law enforcement official from here to Denver knows exactly who is responsible." Her boldness clearly caught Clayton off guard. He glanced at his men, then back at Bella. "This ain't over." "For today, it is," she stated firmly. "Now, please remove yourselves from this property before I'm forced to document another attempt on Mr. Holcomb's life." After a tense moment, Clayton signaled to his men, "We'll be back when he's recovered enough to face what's coming." With that parting threat, they wheeled their horses around and rode off. Finn watched in amazement as Bella stood her ground until the last rider disappeared from view. Only then did her shoulders sag slightly before she turned and walked back toward the house. When she re-entered his bedroom, Finn was waiting. "That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever witnessed." "It worked, didn't it?" Bella replied, though he could see her hands trembling now that the confrontation was over. "You stood up to 7 armed men without flinching," Finn marveled. "Where does a Boston nurse learn that kind of courage?" Something flickered in Bella's eyes, a hint of that mystery she kept so carefully guarded. "I told you, Mr. Holcomb. I go where I'm needed." "You were needed out there today," he acknowledged softly. "Thank you." Their gazes held for a long moment before Bella looked away. "You should rest now. The excitement won't have done your wound any favors." That evening, after a simple dinner during which Mrs. Havers peppered Bella with questions about Boston society, Finn invited her to join him on the porch. The sunset painted the landscape in fiery oranges and deep purples, and a cool breeze carried the scent of sage. "Clayton will be back," Finn said as they settled into rocking chairs. "His kind always comes back." "I know," Bella replied quietly. "Men like that believe power gives them the right to take whatever they want." Something in her tone made Finn turn to study her profile. "You speak from experience." Bella remained silent for so long that Finn thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she said, "My father was a physician in Boston, respected, successful. We lived comfortably until he crossed a powerful man, a railroad investor, ironically enough." "What happened?" "Father refused to falsify medical reports for workers injured on his railways, said he wouldn't compromise his ethics, even when threatened." Bella's voice grew distant. "The man ruined him, called in debts, spread rumors of incompetence. Within a year, Father lost his practice, our home, everything." "I'm sorry," Finn said softly. "Father died shortly after his heart, they said, but I know it was a broken spirit that killed him." Bella's hands tightened in her lap. "I took what nursing training I could afford and vowed never to be so vulnerable again." "Is that why you came west? To escape those memories?" A sad smile touched her lips. "Partly. And partly because I heard frontier towns desperately needed medical help. Somewhere no one knew my name or my father's disgrace seemed freeing." Finn nodded, understanding. "We all come to these territories carrying something, hoping to outrun it or bury it in hard work." "What are you running from, Finn Holcomb?" Bella asked, turning the question back on him. He hadn't expected that and found himself answering honestly. "Failure, maybe. My father died believing I would make something magnificent of this land. Some days I wonder if I'm worthy of that faith. From what I've seen, you've built something remarkable here. At what cost, though?" Finn gestured to his wounded shoulder. "I have no wife, no children to pass this legacy to. Just enemies who want to take it, and a reputation as a man quicker with his gun than his smile." Bella's voice softened. "Is that really how you see yourself?" "It's how others see me," he replied. "Been so long fighting to keep what's mine, I sometimes forget what I'm fighting for." Their conversation drifted to lighter topics as stars appeared overhead. Finn pointed out constellations his father had taught him, and Bella shared stories of her nursing adventures. When she finally rose to retire, Finn caught her hand impulsively. "I'm glad Doc Paulson sent you," he said. "Not just for this." He touched his wounded shoulder. "For everything today." Bella's fingers curled briefly around his. "Get some rest, Finn. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges." The next morning, Finn awoke to find his ranch unusually quiet. Dressing carefully to avoid straining his wound, he made his way to the kitchen, where Mrs. Havers was preparing breakfast alone. "Where's Miss Zimmerman?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Rode out at first light with Jessie," the housekeeper replied, setting a plate before him. "Said they had errands in town." Finn frowned. "She didn't mention any errands last night." "Well, she seemed mighty determined," Mrs. Havers observed. "Told me to make sure you rested and didn't overexert yourself while she was gone." Unease settled in Finn's stomach. After yesterday's confrontation with Clayton, he didn't like the idea of Bella in town without him, especially in the company of his foreman, who might have ranch business at the sheriff's office directly across from the hotel where Clayton and his men were likely staying. Despite Mrs. Havers' protests, Finn saddled his gentlest mare an hour later. The ride into Willow Creek taxed his strength more than he expected, but worry for Bella drove him forward. As he approached town, he rehearsed what he would say when he found her some mixture of concern and reprimand for leaving without telling him her plans. His first stop was Doc Paulson's clinic, but neither Bella nor Jessie were there. The doctor expressed surprise at seeing Finn up and about. "That wound needs at least another week of rest," he admonished. "I'm looking for Miss Zimmerman," Finn explained. "She rode into town this morning but didn't tell anyone why." Doc Paulson's eyebrows rose. "She didn't mention any plans to return today." Growing more concerned, Finn checked the general store, the telegraph office, and finally the sheriff's office, where he found Jessie deep in conversation with Sheriff Davis. "Where's Miss Zimmerman?" Finn demanded without preamble. Jessie turned, surprise evident on his weathered face. "Boss, you shouldn't be riding yet. Miss Zimmerman would have my hide." "Where is she?" Finn repeated, his patience wearing thin. "At the hotel," Jessie replied hesitantly. "She asked me to bring her to town to meet with someone, made me promise not to tell you until she'd finished her business." Finn's unease deepened. "What business? Who's she meeting?" Sheriff Davis and Jessie exchanged glances before the sheriff spoke. "Clayton and his railroad associates, from what I gather." Without another word, Finn turned and strode across the street to the hotel, ignoring the pain shooting through his shoulder. The clerk directed him to the private dining room at the rear, where he found Bella seated at a table with Clayton and two well-dressed men he didn't recognize. "Finn!" Bella exclaimed, rising quickly. "What are you doing here?" "I might ask you the same question," he replied coldly, eyeing Clayton with undisguised hostility. One of the strangers, an older gentleman with silver hair and an expensive suit, stood and extended his hand. "Mr. Holcomb, I presume?" "I'm Edward Thornton, president of the Western Alliance Railroad." Ignoring the offered hand, Finn turned to Bella. "What's going on here?" "Perhaps we should all sit down," she suggested, her composure returning though her cheeks remained flushed. "I was just explaining to these gentlemen about your recovery and the incident at your ranch yesterday." Clayton smirked. "Your nurse is quite the negotiator, Holcomb. Shame you weren't willing to talk business before bullets started flying." "I never fired on anyone," Finn objected. "Nevertheless," the third man interjected, "Miss Zimmerman has made some compelling points about how this situation has escalated unnecessarily." Finn took the empty chair beside Bella, his eyes never leaving her face. "Has she now?" "Mr. Holcomb," Thornton began again, "we've been discussing an alternative route for our rail line that would skirt the eastern edge of your property, rather than cutting through its center. It would cost us more, but Miss Zimmerman has convinced us that cooperation might prove less costly than continued conflict in the long run. Finn's gaze shifted between the railroad men and Bella. And what exactly does Miss Zimmerman gain from this negotiation? Hurt flashed across Bella's face before she replied evenly. The satisfaction of preventing further bloodshed, Mr. Holcomb. Nothing more. Thornton cleared his throat. We're prepared to offer fair compensation for the smaller portion of land required by this new route, plus damages for the unfortunate incident in town. Unfortunate incident, Finn repeated incredulously. Your men tried to kill me. Former employees who exceeded their instructions, Thornton clarified smoothly. Mr. Clayton has been reprimanded for his overzealous approach, I assure you. Clayton's expression suggested the reprimand hadn't made much impression. I'd like to see this proposed route, Finn said finally. Thornton unrolled a map across the table. For the next hour, they discussed boundaries, compensation, and legal guarantees. Throughout the meeting, Finn was acutely aware of Bella beside him, her occasional clarifying questions revealing a surprising knowledge of property law. Her steady presence, somehow both reassuring and unsettling. When they finally reached a tentative agreement, Thornton and his companion departed to send telegrams, leaving Finn alone with Bella and a sullenly silent Clayton. I should return to the ranch, Clayton announced, standing abruptly. But don't think this makes us friends, Holcomb. I still think you're a stubborn fool who got lucky. With a contemptuous nod toward Bella, he added, at least in your choice of nursemaid. After he left, silence hung heavy between Finn and Bella. You're angry, she observed quietly. You went behind my back, Finn replied, struggling to keep his voice level. Made decisions about my land, my livelihood, without consulting me. I made no decisions, Bella corrected. I simply arranged a meeting that should have happened months ago before men started shooting at each other. Why, Bella? Why involve yourself in my troubles? She met his gaze directly. Because I've seen what happens when powerful men like Thornton decide to crush those who stand in their way. They destroyed my father because he stood alone. I didn't want to see the same happen to you. The sincerity in her eyes melted some of Finn's anger. You could have told me what you planned. Would you have agreed? Probably not, he admitted reluctantly. My pride would have gotten in the way, as I suspected. A small smile touched her lips. Besides, you needed to rest, not ride into town prematurely. Finn reached across the table to take her hand. Thank you for caring enough to intervene, even knowing I might resent it. Do you resent it? He considered for a moment. No. I'm beginning to think having you around might be good for more than just my bullet wound. A blush colored her cheeks as she withdrew her hand. Speaking of which, we should return to the ranch so I can check your stitches. That ride couldn't have done them any good. As they rode back together, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the landscape, Finn found himself watching Bella the way she sat confidently in the saddle, despite having been in town less than 2 weeks. The determined set of her jaw, the occasional smile that transformed her serious countenance. Will you stay? He asked suddenly. In Willow Creek, I mean, once I'm fully healed. Bella kept her eyes on the trail ahead. Doc Paulson has offered me a permanent position at his clinic. The town needs a trained nurse. And do you need Willow Creek? She glanced at him then, something unreadable in her expression. Perhaps I haven't decided yet. I hope you'll consider staying, Finn said softly. The territory's rough, but it grows on you like its people. Her smile this time reached her eyes. Some of its people already have. Over the following weeks, as Finn's wound healed completely, Bella divided her time between the ranch and Doc Paulson's clinic in town. The agreement with the railroad proceeded smoothly, with surveyors marking the new route along the eastern boundary of the Rocking H. With each passing day, Finn found more reasons to seek Bella's company, asking her opinion on ranch improvements, inviting her on rides to his favorite spots on the property, sharing meals that stretched into long conversations under the stars. Mrs. Havers watched their growing attachment with poorly concealed approval, while Doc Paulson merely smiled knowingly whenever Finn appeared at the clinic on the flimsiest of pretexts. On a warm evening exactly 1 month after the shooting, Finn asked Bella to accompany him to a special place on his land, a high meadow overlooking the valley, where wildflowers carpeted the ground and the setting sun painted the distant mountains gold. "It's breathtaking," Bella said as they dismounted. "I can see why this land means so much to you." Finn spread a blanket on the grass, and they sat side by side, the comfortable silence of people who no longer needed constant words. "My father brought me here the day we purchased the ranch," Finn finally said. "Told me that whenever I felt lost or uncertain, I should come to this spot and remember what we were building. Said a man needs an anchor in his life, something that reminds him who he is when the world tries to change him." Bella's hand found his on the blanket. "Your father sounds like a wise man." "He was," Finn agreed, turning to face her. "But I've been thinking lately that maybe land isn't the only anchor a person needs." Their eyes met, and Finn saw in Bella's gaze the same emotion that had been growing in his heart, tentative at first, then stronger with each passing day. "When I took that bullet," he continued, his voice low, "I was fighting to protect this ranch because it was all I had. But these past weeks, I've realized there's something I want more." "What's that?" Bella asked softly. "A future that includes you," Finn answered simply. "I know it's soon, and you came here seeking independence, not attachment. But I've never been a man to hesitate once I know what I want." Bella's expression grew serious. "Finn, my life hasn't prepared me for this. After my father died, I promised myself I'd never depend on anyone again. Never be vulnerable to having everything taken away." "I'm not asking you to depend on me," Finn said earnestly. "I'm asking to build something together, something neither of us could lose because it would be part of us, not just something we possess." She looked away, toward the setting sun. "I care for you more than I thought possible after knowing someone such a short time, but I'm afraid." "Of what?" "Of believing in something that might not last," she admitted. "The world takes things away, Finn. People, homes, dreams, nothing is permanent." Finn gently turned her face back toward him. "Some things are worth the risk of loss. I think what's growing between us might be one of them." Bella studied him for a long moment before a small smile curved her lips. "When did a hard-headed rancher get so wise?" "Around the time a stubborn nurse from Boston started telling me when I was being a fool," he replied with a grin. Their laughter mingled in the evening air before Bella grew serious again. "I can't promise I won't still be scared sometimes." "I'd never expect that," Finn assured her. "We all carry our fears, but maybe together they don't have to control us." As the last light faded from the sky, Finn leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. Instead, Bella met him halfway, their lips touching in a kiss that felt like coming home after a long journey. When they finally separated, Bella's eyes shimmered with unshed tears and something else, hope, perhaps. "It still hurts sometimes," Finn whispered, touching the nearly healed wound on his shoulder. "Remembering what happened, what could have happened." Bella placed her hand over his. "That's why I'm here," she said softly. "To help it hurt less." Under a canopy of emerging stars, they stayed on the meadow talking of possibilities, a clinic of their own someday, children running on the ranch, adventures they might share. Nothing was settled except the certainty that whatever came next, they would face it together. 3 months later, on a perfect autumn day, Bella Zimmerman became Bella Holcomb in a simple ceremony at the rocking H. Doc Paulson gave her away. Mrs. Havers wept openly, and the entire town turned out to celebrate. As they danced under lanterns in the ranch yard, Finn held his bride close and whispered, "Any regrets about staying in this dusty frontier town?" Bella's answer was a kiss that promised many more years of healing, growth, and love on the land they both now called home.